Okay, so we are approximately 10 days before some of you will be sitting GAMSAT, and a couple of weeks to as many as possibly 3 weeks for some of you who will be sitting the exam. And some of you, of course, will be sitting the exam in September. So right now, if you are sitting the exam in March, then just suggestion, most of your time should be spent doing completing GAMSAT level practice questions and not studying basic content unless there is something about that basic content you were missing in order to answer a GAMSAT level practice question. And so hopefully you're working with ACER's booklets. You've completed them, the 5 booklets. So ideally, that's what you've done, and that you're using other resources for GAMSAT level practice questions. So of course, Gold Standard, we are using the new Master Series, which has the most up-to-date questions. So what we're going to do today is we're going, I mean, we've been doing this for, believe it or not, for more than 10 years, monthly free webinars. And today's is GAMSAT Physics. And we're going to try to touch on some common themes in GAMSAT Physics that come up on the exam regularly. One, of course, is logarithms, just testing your logarithm skills. Do you really understand what a logarithm is and how to approach it in a graphical setting? So it doesn't say that every single GAMSAT has logs, but let's just say when students are going to be sitting the March GAMSAT, many students will have units with logs. And sometimes those units won't even use the word logs. So sometimes students don't even know it was a logarithmic unit because the word wasn't used, but the scale was used. And so we'll take a look at that with one of the practice questions. And then we'll do, a time permitting, a unit with dimensional analysis and equation manipulation, because that's the other thing about physics. Students don't often truly understand that physics is not about memorizing, of course, you've heard this, don't memorize heaps of information. It's not a content type exam, it's a reasoning exam. Every student has heard this, but when they study subjects like physics, they feel they just fall into the forest and they just can't see the overall forest from the trees. They just can't see the big picture. And that's why GAMSAT level practice questions is very important. So we're going to do one with dimensional analysis and equation manipulation because that's standard for the exam. And then we're going to have a special visit from the Master Series book. I'll just give you a very brief introduction to the new features. And then we're going to do a graph analysis question from the book that has that subject and that type of analysis has come up on the exam in 2020, which means that there's a 50% chance that that analysis will come up on your exam because ACER repeats half of their questions. So, so we'll look at that as the last unit after when we go into the book. So the first, okay, and I also want to say, because I know some of the students who are here might attend tutorials, the tutorials that we have, and the weekly tutorials, and they may have access to the book and all that. So I am not presenting, we have 6,000 practice questions. I'm not presenting anything new today. So if you have completed GS Free, all of the questions on GS Free, and if you've completed all of the GAMSAT level practice questions at the end of the chapter, then you've seen these questions already. And so you may decide to look at these questions again, or you might decide to study something else in the meantime before our tutorial, 3-hour tutorial begins at the top of the hour. Okay, so first step is to, so first of all, I want you to know that I'm not here alone. I have G and Benj and perhaps others I can't see right now, but who are here to help you if you have any technical issues accessing practice questions or anything. So I won't personally try to resolve that problem. I'll try to keep the train rolling so that we can try to get as as many practice questions as we can in the limited time. And but if you have a problem, just post, and there's going to be somebody who's going to be looking after you. Okay, it might take a few seconds, but they will be they're looking at all the posts in order to help you. So the first thing we're going to do is get you into GS Free. So either you have already an account at gamsatprep.com. It's a free account. It's free access to a full-length digital exam with the formatting of the new 2020, 2021, 2022 GAMSAT, and all the work solutions are also free. So don't worry that you're getting into a situation where you're paying for something if you are not on the account. And if you already have the account, then I'll just ask you to log into your account now. And if you don't have an account, go to gamsatprep.com. And in the top right corner, you can click on register, and then you can log in to the account. And then we're going to practice with some physics, graph analysis, and equation manipulation practice questions in GS Free Section 3. So I'm going to ask you that once you are on the homepage and you see the GS Free exam, you click on it and you open Section 3, please just say, I'm there. So this is GS Free Section 3. Thank you for that, Lemmy. Okay, got a couple of people. Okay, great. Okay, we've got a couple more. I'll just wait for a few more. If anybody's having technical problems, just please post and someone will give you a hand. Okay, so once you log in, you should see GS Free. So practice tests, GS Free. As soon as you log in, click on that, and then Section 3. Okay, you can go to that link, and if you, just to be sure, Patricia, did you log in? Great, thank you, Olivia. Okay, great. So you can, you will see a box that says practice test and GS Free, or you can go to the link, which is just above in the chat window, and then scroll down and you will see GS Free at the bottom. So you can do either of those things. You should see a box that says practice test, GS Free, start now, something like that. Okay, great. Is anybody, so right now I'm going to assume that everybody's there and we're ready to begin. Great, great, great. So Laura, as soon as you, so the link is, you don't need the link because as soon as you log in, you will see free exam, GS Free, practice test, and it's a box, and then you click on that and it will lead you to it. But if you can't find that, you can click on the link that someone put there, which is a direct link to the exams page. Or actually, you just scroll up and click on tests. At the top of the page, click on tests, and then scroll down to the bottom and you will see GS free. Yeah, you don't need the link. There's no link, gamsatprep.com. Go to gamsatprep.com and then log in, register. Go to gamsatprep.com and register. So G, there's gonna probably be some people coming in late who will ask the same question. So G, if you can please help them find it. Give them the link to gamsatprep.com, right, register, and log in and what they see. So if you can help them with that, G, and then I will get everyone else to start these 3 practice questions. So Ashley, G's gonna help you. So go to gamsatprep.com, click on register, top right corner. Once you log in to your account, you will see GS free, the free practice test. Okay, so we are about to begin. You see the 3 questions we'll be doing. Question 49, 68, 69. 49 is graph analysis. When you get to 49, you will see a graph that looks like this. So just imprint this so that you're working on the correct question. So that's question 49, 68 and 69. It's about radioactivity. So radioactivity, 68 and 69. 49 is graph analysis. So as per the real exam, you should have some scratch paper on the side that you'll be using. You'll get 2 A4 sheets of scrap paper for the real exam, new digital format, computerized and all that. And you will have an average of 2 minutes per question for section 3, which is the most ever in the history of the exam. So it's a really great opportunity for you, which means that for these 3 questions, you are to have 6 minutes. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put the question numbers here so that you can see all that. Okay, so those are the 3 question numbers. You have 6 minutes, and then we will discuss the work. Well, actually, then you assess the work solutions, and then we will talk. Okay, so 6 minutes, please begin now. We're doing 49, 68, and 69. 1 minute left, one more minute. Okay, so that's time. Now, does anybody want 1 extra minute, 1 bonus minute to complete their thoughts on whatever they're finishing right now? Do you need 1 extra minute? If you do, just post, I need an extra minute. And if not, then we will get you to submit the question for marking, which will allow you to see the work solutions. Okay, so you have 1 extra minute. When you are finished and you want to see the answers, click End Test and you can look at the work solution. And then you'll see if you have any questions. So click End Test so that you can look at the work solutions for the questions 49, 68, and 69. Check your answers. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone now is clicking End Test, checking their answers. Some of you might not be surprised, but some of you might be surprised at the answers. Have a look at the work solutions, and any question that you have for any of these 3 questions, post your question in the chat window. G, can you also put the link to the forum in the chat window so that if students later watch the video or something and they, I should also explain where it is because they might not see it. But anyway, so just put the link to the forum. So if you are too shy to ask a question during this webinar, you can go to the forum later and you can post your question in the forum. And, you know, we usually respond in the forum within a business day. So there's no charge for any of that. You can just post when you're ready. Okay, so anyway, this time is done. So now you should be looking at the answers and the work solutions. And when you're finished, say, I'm done, or you can have your question about either of these three questions. Are videos available for previous seminars? Yes, for the 2021 seminars, videos are available. Not for prior to 2021 because of all the changes with COVID and all that, all the massive changes. Google and Adobe decided not to have Flash anymore on January 1st, 2021. So all of the past webinars, those are history, but the ones from 2021 are there. Thanks for putting the link for that. So now you're correcting the three questions, looking at the answers, looking at the work solutions. And if you have any question, just ask. And if you don't, then just write, I'm done. Thank you for that, Laura. Of course, you could revise your notes while you're waiting because you're a full-time GAMSAT student, Laura, and you find every opportunity to study. Okay. So from Michelle, okay. Question about question 49. Okay, so first of all, question 49 describes something called a fluctuation factor. So it has the word factor in it, and importantly, it provides an example. So during the real exam, ACER is going to be teaching you things that you've never heard of before. It's normal because they want to see if they teach you something new, can you roll with it? Can you adapt to something that you've never seen before? So there's going to be new things. So introduction of the idea of a fluctuation factor, and it is the factor by which something has increased. So if the fluctuation factor is 5, that means it increased by 5-fold or 5 times what it was before. Okay, so we keep that in mind. And then it's saying if you, at any given height, if you look at the parameters of temperature, electron density, and neutral density, which one has the greatest fluctuation factor? So at any given height, which one has the greatest increase in these 3 parameters? Now, of course, when you look at this graph, instantly, you're going to tell yourself that temperature clearly has the greatest fluctuation factor because it has gone from a value, let's say just above 700 to a value of just perhaps above 1400. So it is twofold or 2 times, and therefore the fluctuation factor for temperature is twice. But the other graphs, if you look at the highest to the lowest value, highest to lowest, it doesn't seem to have the same width of temperature. Okay, so that's the primary, that's the that's the basic, sort of analysis. But when you get more practice, you do things a standard approach. So the standard approach, it's described in the book, chapter 3, but for GAMSAT Maths, it starts with, reading the caption. What does the caption say? It says nothing. It doesn't help you, but you have to read it because sometimes it does give some kernel of importance. Then you assess the axes and you assess the increments. For example, do you see how this, the y-axis started at 100 and it started going up? In this particular question, that's not a trick, but Acer does sometimes start graphs at non-zero numbers, and that ends up being the trick as to how to answer the question correctly. So you have to be sensitive to the fact that did the graph start at 0, 0 or not? Because that does affect things. It may affect things. So anyway, so it starts, but the increments are regular, linear, 100, 200, 300. It's not going from 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000. That is a logarithmic scale, and they will not even write the word log. They don't have to write the word log if you can see the numbers increasing like that. But the answer to the question will depend on your recognition of the logarithmic scale. Okay, so then down here, it's linear for temperature. No problem. So when you go from this to this, it's twice. It's approximately twice or twofold because this is linear and we can see the numbers. But electron density, we go up to electron density, it's a log scale. Neutral density, we go up to neutral density. So when you assess X and Y, you have to assess all the X and Y axes. Sometimes you will find multiple Y axes. Sometimes you'll have a 3-dimensional graph, which I believe there's an example of that also in this GS Free. So you have 3D graphs, you have graphs with multiple axes, and you have to assess all of these, and then you look at the curve. The first thing that many students look at is the curve. The last thing you're supposed to look at is the curve, because you cannot interpret anything about the curve without first understanding what the axes are. And then you would ascribe total neutral density to neutral density. You wouldn't be looking down here at temperature because the temperature is irrelevant to the analysis of what is the total neutral density. So now that we're looking at that, we can say this is a fluctuation factor of 2, but the electron density, the greatest width of the electron density, let's say it's about like this, And that greatest width of the electron density, understanding that you're not to look at this y-axis. You're to look at this y-axis. The third from the bottom, you're looking at this one because that one has the electron number density, electron density. So when you look at the width of this, it is approximately the width of one number in terms of log. That one number in terms of log is famously 10 times. Just fix because of course of this. Whoops. Okay, so this width is 1 unit on this scale, and 1 unit on that scale is log 10 to the 1, which is the number 1. This is 2 units on this scale, and 2 units, because don't forget, this is neutral density. So we have to read this scale, total neutral density. And on this scale, the width of this, the greatest width of this is approximately 2 units, going from -14 to -12. So that's 2 units. Now, what does 2 units on a log scale represent? It represents 10 to the 2, and that's the 2 units. So temperature seems like it's the greatest width, which means the greatest range, the greatest fold increase. It looks like it. It's the least, because electron density with a smaller one, but because it's a log scale, this means that the lowest value to the highest value is 10 times. And this one, which has even lower width, but because of the log scale, and you take the width of this, you put it on the log scale, and it has 2 units. Those 2 units represent 10 to the 2, 100 times. So fluctuation factor 2, fluctuation factor 10, fluctuation factor 100. And so the answer is indeed A. Does anybody have any, okay, let me, I'm gonna look at the questions, pending questions. Okay, so George is asking about dimensional analysis for question 69, which we'll look at next. Chris is asking, how does it affect things if the graph does not start from 0? Is it always a log scale when it starts from a non-zero number? No, actually, I'm sorry, Chris, I should have been more clear. The fact that this does not start at 0 has nothing to do with logarithms, because the scale on the y-axis is linear. So this has nothing to do with logarithms. This has to do with pure trickery. Now, which in this case is not an issue. In this case, not an issue. But Acer has exam questions where if the student did not notice that it didn't start at 0, then they can make a mistake because they can't conceive of what's happening outside of that area, just like that. So you have to look at that. The other trick that Acer sometimes applies is that they'll break the graph at some point. So you'll see 2 lines in the graph or something of that breaks the graph, and then the numbers will suddenly jump to another level. And they'll ask you about something that's happening in between to see if you understood that the graph was broken. So those are certain things that can be done with even linear graphs. Whether or not the graph starts at 1 or 0 or 10 or whatever has nothing to do with, logarithm. Logarithm, there's 2 things you're going to look at for a log scale. One, did they use the word log? Because that's a hint and a half. Obviously, if they use the word log, it's a log scale. But the other way that they can have it is not using the word log, but showing you the scale, meaning that the numbers will be, it would be too much for this, but it would be 0.00001, and then this one would be 0.000, and so on, at 10 to the -8, and so on. So they can show you the numbers, or more typically what they'll show you is 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million. And when you see those numbers with regular intervals, you know it's a logarithmic scale, even if they don't use the word logarithm. And then of course the questions change. And by the way, in GS Free, there's a biology graph unit, which is a classic ACER type, logarithmic, understanding logarithms curve. So you can get that also in this same free test. Okay, do you approximate the width to be 2 units? I approximate the width of electron density to be 1 unit on the electron density scale. Okay, that to be, and I approximate the widest portion of total neutral density to be approximately 2 units on the neutral density, log neutral density scale. So that answers that question. Does the negative positive sign have any significance in terms of log scale interpretation in this example? There's no difference because what we're talking about is, yeah, I don't really want to draw these numbers, but anyway, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 to the 10 is this number. So we're talking about changing this number to a number with 1 less 0. Okay, so it's 10 times. So you don't literally have to draw out the number to see that if the log changes by 1, it's 10 times. And that's the same thing if this, I'm not going to write it out, but if this was 0.00000 all the way to minus 12, 10 to the minus 12, compared to 10 to the minus 10, that is a 100 times difference. So it doesn't matter if you started at a super, super tiny fraction or whatever, it's the change in the logarithm. This concept is important because it allows you to not waste time when you have pH calculations. Classically, ACER will have a pH calculation in which, in fact, you don't even have to calculate, in which they will, show you that the concentration of hydrogen is 10 times more, or the concentration of hydrogen is 100 times more. And so by knowing that, you know that the pH has decreased by 1 unit or by 2 units, because 10 corresponds to 1 and 100 corresponds to 2 on the logarithmic scale. And when hydrogen ion concentration increases, pH goes down because of its negative log hydrogen ion concentration. So having that facility with logs, log 10 to the 2 is 2, log 10 to the 3 is 3, log 10 to the 4 is 4. Just that simplicity allows you to skip steps during the exam. Okay, so I'm gonna skip forward, unless there's any other question about that. I'm gonna skip forward to question 69. And the issue is the dimensional analysis, understanding what had to be done, but just getting caught on the dimensional analysis part. Okay, so for question 69, you're given the amount. Okay, well, first of all, the first way I would start this answer, by the way, is looking at the units of the answer choices. So the units of the answer choices are in grays. So radioactive unit, which comes up on the exam regularly, incidentally. So we know it's in grays. So now what I do is I look at the chart, and the chart tells me what a gray is. So a gray is a joule per kilogram. So that's how you start, because if the units are otherwise, you're going to calculate differently. Now I know what I need. I need joules over kilograms. Okay, so I was given kilojoules. Okay, so I know how to convert kilojoules to joules. And this is the nature of dimensional analysis. So if I have 0.5 kilojoules, I know that that is going to be 50 joules, right? Because 0.05, when you multiply this by 1,000, kilo means 1,000, you go 1, 2, and 3. So you put a 0 here, 50 joules. So that's times 1,000. So that's, I've converted kilojoules to joules. And then it's a 100-gram breast tumor. Are you gonna, if a patient has a tumor, do you give radiation to the entire body, or do you give radiation to the tumor? So you're gonna radiate the tumor. And so it's a 50 kilogram female, but the tumor is 100 grams, so we're going to radiate that. But we don't need 100 grams, we need kilograms. And again, 100, so that's going to be moving it over 1,000, which is 3 decimal points. So 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to have, I'll be dividing this by 0.1 kilograms. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So that's where I'm going to put the decimal point. So 0.1 kilograms because it's kilo. Okay, so now I've got it set up in the way that I've been given in the table. It's a joule per kilogram. So I have joule per kilogram. And so I know that I am talking about multiply top and bottom by 10. So this becomes 1. Top and bottom by 10, that becomes 500. So I have 500 grays. So that's my answer. So I look for the answer, 500 grays. It's not there. So, so I have all these other types of grays, B, C, and D, but they're all wrong. I know it's 500. So let me check what A is really telling me. So A is saying kilograys, and my SI unit, so kilo is 1, 2, 3 over 0.5 kilograys. Bingo, done. Any questions? If not, I'm going to give you just a, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction to the book, and then I will, and I know none of you are buying this right now because it's too late for the thing, but some of the questions might help if you have the ebook, but the physical book, it might be a little late. So I do want, oh, and also if you do have the book, there are some things that you just need to zero in on as quickly as possible, or ebook. And by the way, of course, you can get some of these things online, different resources, Khan Academy, except for the GAMSAT level practice questions. So, you know, this is what I was talking about before about breaking graphs. You can break a graph, a linear graph, and cause some confusion for some students. So it's something to look after. And of course, there's 3D graphs and so on. But if you do have this book, even if you have the old edition, you should use the new one to see the new graphs that were added. So there are some new graphs. Also, you know, you can see logarithmic scale, but it doesn't use the word logarithm. It doesn't use it in the question or anything else. There's a similar one to this in the GS free. So you'll get an idea of what can come. And of course, there are other weird and wonderful types of graphs. This one I also just added last week to GS1 because, yeah, so because of rumors. So now I just wanted to show you the way that it's created now is that each chapter tells you what to memorize, what you have to understand, and the percent importance of the chapter based on the 440 multiple choice questions that ACER has. So each one has the percent importance and also shows you with the tabs if it's high, medium, or level importance, so you can choose what you want to study. And it starts with the need for speed exercises for you to just fill out, which are not GAMSAT level. Then, of course, the content, and then the new practice questions, which all start with foundational practice questions. So basic things that ACER would never ask, but allows you to remember the basic things that you need to know when you get to GAMSAT level. And then there are the GAMSAT level practice questions, which are more involved and still very little assumed knowledge, but a lot of equation manipulation, graph analysis, and so on. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to do a graph analysis question, which has, this topic has come up on the exam regularly in the last couple of years, which means some of you will be exposed to it. Now, we do not have any interest in replicating exact questions and answer choices and such things, but we have very much interest in coming up with similar topics and similar types of analysis and reasoning, so that you've gone through that type of procedure and you know what the approach is. So that's what we're going to do. And that's what all the GAMSAT level practice questions, thousands now in the new master series are doing. So this is chapter 1, physics. You can, so I'm giving permission as the publisher, you can take a screenshot or a picture with your smartphone of this graph so that I can go lower down and show you the 3 questions associated with this graph. So when you've taken a picture or a screenshot of the graph, please just say, oh, let me get this higher up. Please just say done. So when you have a screenshot or a picture, please just say done. I'm just going to make sure there's enough dones, and then we're going to look at the questions. Then you'll have 2 minutes to solve each of the 3 questions, which means, again, you will have 6 minutes. Okay, great. Okay, anybody need more time? Okay, good. We're moving right along. So you will see that there is a note that under the graph, and those are the 3 questions. So I'll try to hold them, and you have 6 minutes. Please begin. Answers to Chris, yes and yes. And it's crazy. It used to be 1.5 minutes per question for more than 20 years. Okay, so that is time. Um, okay, so what do we do? because there's another tutorial that starts in 4 minutes, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to, you can continue to spend whatever time you require in order to do your best for those 3 questions, because it's always more important to give a full effort than to just jump and to look at the work solutions. Because if you look at the work solutions, they'll always, I mean, the great majority of times that you look at a work solution, it will make sense to you. You'll say, oh, I see it now, I get it now. But the true GAMSAT preparation is the struggle. It's to keep struggling and trying to get through it, and then to find your way around it. Find your way to have a standard approach, like I explained about graph analysis. It's described in chapter 3, but a standard approach to graphs in which you always look x-axis, y-axis, scales, et cetera, and look at the curve last. So all these different things. Now, I just will try to answer a couple of questions. Don't worry, we're going to give you the work solutions to these last 3 questions. You will get the answers and work solutions in about 3 minutes. So I want to get through some of the questions. So do we get 2 minutes each from Chris for these questions in the digital GAMSAT exam? And it's going to be the same for September. Yes. So it's 2 minutes each on average. So in other words, it's 75 questions, multiple choice questions for section 3, which is reduced from pre-2020 levels, and time increases to 150 minutes. So you have, I can't emphasize this, it's crazy. It's 33% more time. Now, Chris' follow-up question was, are they giving us more time because it's a digital exam? Perhaps someone thought that, but it's ridiculous. No one needs a third more time because it's on a computer screen. I mean, it cannot be reasoned based on digital. I think somebody made a mistake. I think somebody just made a calculation error and they're not going to change it. They also gave a little bit more time for section 1, but they didn't give as much time for section 1. And section 1 also has some graphs. So it just doesn't make sense. And you have scratch paper. So it just doesn't make sense. But anyway, that's technical. So are there answers? Okay, you are going to get the answers. Chris, is it worth Googling around the weird, unusual graphs to get more exposure and practice? You can do that, Chris. You can do that. Students have tried that for decades. The problem is that you don't get GAMSAT style practice questions. So yes, of course, if you're in the gold standard universe of products, you're going to get heaps of triangle graphs, nomograms, of complex graphs with many different axes. So it's all in there. And even if you're not using gold standard, you can try Desunil or something like that. But there are not many companies that are making these complex graphs. With this particular graph wasn't complex, by the way, but the first one we saw was. Okay, from Jessica, can I take the image of the questions for that again? I only got one of the graph. Okay, so I want to make sure Jessica gets the questions. And while Jessica's doing that, G, can you please post the answers and the work solutions? So G's going to post the answers and the work solutions. And a couple more questions. So this is for Jessica. Okay, and from Chris, will the number of questions be the same for the September exam? Yes. March and September will have the same number of questions, 47 for section 1, 75 for section 3, and of course 2 for section 2. So 2021 will have the same, March and September. I just have to say this, but this year, you know, Ireland is under lockdown and so on. And so they're going to be doing it as a home proctor exam. So, and that happened also in Australia and the UK in the, for the first exam in 2020. So when I say what I say, Chris, this is what the world is planning. What happens in the world and what the world is planning may be two different things. So right now, yes, the September exam is supposed to be the same. Let's hope that there's vaccines and blah, 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 and everybody does the right thing. And so we can carry on with the world and life. Okay, so can we write on the paper during reading time for section 1 and 2 only, or section 3 too? So from MM. So your question is very pertinent, and the source of the confusion is Acer. Acer should never had put in their new booklets something about reading time. They shouldn't even use the expression, because you know, we say this in the book and elsewhere, this is a legacy issue. Before 2020, you had 10 minutes reading time for section 1, 5 minutes for section 2, 10 minutes reading time for section 3. Before 2020, you were not allowed to write during the reading time. If you did, that was an act of misconduct and your exam can be canceled. And it happened to many students, marking their exam, just turning the paper, anything, and their exam was canceled. So that was the way it was. And then 2020 happened. And so Acer rearranged the timing of the exams, and they realized you can't really have reading time on a computerized exam at a computer test center, because it's just going to create chaos. So instead, they incorporated the reading time into the actual time of the test. Now, just to be clear, you know, that should not increase the test amount of test time in section 3 by 33%. I mean, you only get an extra few minutes, like 7 minutes in a 150-minute test. But nonetheless, they incorporated it, they expanded the time for section 3, and they still use the expression reading time, but it's completely false. It's misleading, because the second that section 1 starts, the timing for the section 1 exam starts, you're permitted to write on your scratch paper. That's stunning. It's really a massive difference, because now you can read, so-called quote unquote, read through the exam, so that you're going from page to page to page to see what you're going to attack first. And you can write it down on your scratch paper. You can write down question 68, question 22, you can write it down so that you go and you attack those first. So in the old version of the exam, you couldn't do that. You couldn't really assess the test and write down what you wanted to do first, like circling numbers. You weren't allowed. So you had to wait the 10 minutes, which was obviously a very stressful time for some students. But now the exam starts when the exam starts, and the reading time is rolled into the actual time of the test. And that goes for section 1, 2, and section 3. The other thing too you should know is that the scratch paper for section 1 is the same as the scratch paper for section 2. So you just, whatever you write at the beginning, you can use it later. So if you were memorizing certain titles or themes or expressions or studies, research articles, then you can just dump it on your section 1 scratch paper, because you're using the same thing for section 2. Okay. So G, did you put the link? I'm not sure. I didn't see it. G, if you can put the link, please, for the work solutions. And then we will say goodbye, because we have another tutorial starting now or 4 minutes ago. And so listen, look, you got to see GS Free. You have a free full-length test. I believe we're the only company that provides a free full-length test. And so you can go through it. All the work solutions are included and are also free. If you're sitting the exam in September, then you should seriously consider the Master Series, because it's the only set of books published in 2021 and it has the most up-to-date questions reflecting the 2020 exam. So it's the most up-to-date questions, and we keep updating our questions online, to which we will do after the 2021 March exam. Okay, so G, it's just for questions 18, 19, 20. If you just have a screenshot of it, that should do. Oh, there you go. Google Drive. That'll do also. Okay, so you guys can get the work solutions by clicking on those links. If you have any technical difficulties, just post what's not working, and G or Benj or someone will give you assistance. Otherwise, I will wish you good luck with your studies and hopefully see you in a hospital somewhere working or dentist office or whatever your plan is. Bye for now, and if you're coming to the tutorial, we'll be starting in 3 minutes.